couple of minutes for the room to fill up. But I've got a great guest today in Bruce from Partisia, who will do a bit of an introduction on himself. But today is a talking pitch. So the whole week we've selected colleagues and supporters of Profila from different industries to walk through the pitch with me and to ask questions and to understand the company a little bit better. Because when you're having a conversation, it's a little bit better and different than just pitching one way to millions of people. So this morning, as everyone's aware, if you've been following us, we kicked off the ZEKE token sale on MinSwap and on the LCX6. So we're excited for what we can do to disrupt the whole data and advertising community. I think what we've built over the last 7 years, and it's amazing how fast it's gone, but a lot of research and development has gone into trying to disrupt probably one of the bigger industries in the world of nearly 900 billion, close to $1 trillion, in probably the next couple of years of customer data and ad industry. So with that, Bruce, I would like you just to first introduce yourself, a little bit of background on who you are, and also what interested you in Profila in the first place before we start running through just a very short deck for people to understand Profila better.
Yeah, thanks, Sean. Hi everybody. My name is Bruce Han. I'm the chief of staff at Partisia Blockchain Foundation. I've had a variety of different roles within the technology industry. Overall, worked with a life insurance company in the past as a delivery lead. I was the network architect, so I had a lot of infrastructure experience in the past. I also worked for a large telephone company, T-Mobile, for a number of years, doing some additional network, and then moved into software development. And then about 2 years ago, I joined Partisia, the Partisia Blockchain Foundation. And my initial interest in Partisia Blockchain Foundation was with what MBC can accomplish, and I think that really ties back into what Profila is basically trying to do, which is collaboration ultimately in the end. How can we have multiple different people collaborate together to provide a better experience, provide better trust between people and entities, and then provide a new value proposition or a new way of interacting with people without compromising on our private data. I think even in the Web2 world, we're forced to compromise our privacy. Like as an example, in the advertisement industry, there's many stories about how your private data is misused or used without your knowledge. And how do we really help find a different way of doing things so that both the users of the system is able to trust the system and be able to gain the values back to the users, while and also on the other side, the companies themselves are also able to gain trust and value with data that is accurate. That to me overall was what drove me to Partisia Blockchain Foundation. So I've held a variety of different roles with inside Partisia, and currently I'm working a lot on the adoption side of things, program management. I do a little bit of adoption as well, some orchestration work for the entire team, and some advisement to our SLTs.
Awesome. Bruce, thank you. And I can see why you were interested in Profila in the first place, because a lot of the themes for Partisia are exactly the same as Profila. Is data is valuable, and how do we protect it, and how do we prevent companies and bad actors from abusing it? Mm-hmm. So I'll introduce myself too for those who haven't met me. It's Sean Jensen. I'm co-founder and CEO of Profila. But my background, South African, is the accent you're hearing, but been in Switzerland since 2010. And my career, though, was in global telecommunications, so a little bit of overlap with Bruce there, many years with Vodacom and Vodafone, and any colleagues that might be watching, it's like, hey, shout out, go and invest in the token. I was always known as a bit of a disruptor and trying to build solutions. Quite a few failed, quite a few, I think, did something good. But in my career, it was mostly focused on product. So I would say I'm a product guy from day one, trying to build solutions to problems. In fact, one of my titles was solution crafter because they couldn't find anything else, and Rainmaker wasn't allowed. But I think my career matured when I went into Vodafone in Europe and started looking after bigger portfolios in solution architecture. Whereas leading a solution architecture function for Central Europe, Southern Europe, and also then eventually at one phase for other regions in the world. And I think what people misunderstand from technology is that components of technology are nothing unless they're built into a complete solution. And we had a saying there on cache, rumor to cache cycle is what a solution architect needs to look for, is how do I find a lead for a product before I even decide what product it is. How does somebody sign up for it? Then you get to the technicals of, okay, somebody signed up for it, how are they going to use it? How do you build that product technically? What are the components, the architectures, the network? And then for each one, how do you support that is fundamental. But more importantly too is how do you build for it? How do you manage support? And then how do you end of life it? So solution architecture looks at the big picture. Okay, and I think that's what is missing, in my opinion, in the Web3 space, because there's a lot of awesome technology. But to go there and look at all this stuff and say, okay, I need a little bit of that, I need a little bit of that, and string it together has been the problem for the industry, right? Is the interoperability of all this very cool new technology. But yeah, I love that. Back at that stage, and I love-hate relationship with sales colleagues, I think, because I had to sign off on about 400 million euros of deals every year with our team to say, yes, we can deliver that, or no, we can't. And I think that makes you wake up to building platforms and services that are not perfect, but are good enough to deliver a great service to your customers while you're striving for perfection. And I think that's what excited me when I took an opportunity, a package to go and conquer probably life's biggest challenge in the digital world, which is privacy and the risk to our privacy because of all of the advancements in technology. And surprisingly, Bruce, even before I start the walkthrough on the investor pitch, I think people have forgotten about Zuckerberg and they've forgotten about Cambridge Analytica because all of a sudden politics has taken over and world orders and whatever it is. But for some reason, their stock market is still increasing and nothing's really changed. We've had regulation implemented, which is trying to make a difference, and we're getting slap on the wrist fines. But essentially, it's as business as usual for all of these companies. Okay, if anything, I am more afraid now for our privacy with the advent of, with the AI boom, because anything that they could have done in tracking and surveillance can now be compounded, 100x or 1000x in some cases, as to how data can be siphoned, reviewed, analyzed, and then generate, something crazy. So I don't know, what's your opinion on people's laissez-faire approach to privacy in context with, where it's become such a huge issue?
Yeah, it's a difficult position, I think, for many of the people who are focused in on privacy. I don't know if people realize, as an example, the AI side of things. The amount of capabilities that now we have to identify and surveil people, not just from a just forget about governments. We're talking about corporations now to be able to identify who is going where. The amount of surveillance that even maybe your company laptop is doing onto your system. And it's a great question. I'm not 100% sure how to strengthen our awareness in the lack of privacy that we really have as a part of these various different emerging technologies. Um, it's still a question that I struggle with.
That's exactly the point, though, Bruce, isn't it? Because everyone I've spoken to is, even enterprises are using AI now, and they promise us they've got these isolated environments. At the end of the day, it's all connected to this LLM, and that insight into even an enterprise will eventually leak out into these bigger models. But
Well,
to
actually,
yeah.
I wanted to. There are certain things that people do care about. I think there's a level that I think people understand. So, as an example, medical data. That I think people, if they realize that their medical history is exposed, I think people will seriously have some problems with it. Um, and so there certainly is a level I think that people just naturally do care about. And I think maybe one of the thing is to understand where that level is.
Yeah.
So that's my initial thought. Trying to figure out where that level is of where people actually care about from a privacy perspective currently, and how do we educate people in what are some of the things that are happening
Mm-hmm.
because you don't realize where some of these data are being used.
Correct. Look, so let's jump into the flow and the chat, and please stop me at any stage, Bruce, if there's something that you think we need to expand on. But our presentation is very simple now and very succinct because we know the market we're trying to address. But first of all, a profiler. So a profile, as according to Cambridge, is this description of someone's life, work, character. And we know it in the technical world as a set of data that defines a customer or an individual on a platform. But a profiler, in our context, is exactly the same. So it's a combination of data that serves some sort of purpose defining who you are, but that you own. Okay, and that is the simplicity of what a profiler is going to become in the future. And the term a personal media platform was quite intentional because we've got social, we've got search, but we don't have anywhere to go to have a private relationship digitally unless you're going to every single company's website, and then you're also abiding by their terms and conditions, and that's a mission. So there is no platform like this out there which actually tries to consolidate individuals' efforts and let them have a one-to-many brand experience on a singular environment. But what is the challenge? And this is the low-hanging fruit problem that we started with in Profila, because it was that movie, on the social dilemma, and it was the Cambridge Analytica, and it was the advertising industry that is mostly accused of starting this problem. Okay, I know there's other sectors that have also got challenges, but the ad industry is obsessed with getting to know who their customers are. And that's not a harsh word to use, okay, because brands are spending billions of dollars, okay, to try and understand who you are so that they can shove content down your throat. And that's not harsh. That's currently how they do it, to shove content down your throat, hoping that a fraction of people will buy. And they're doing that with surveillance knowingly, okay, because there's no other way currently to do it. All the platforms out there have not taken an ethical approach to this. And also the way that they measure success is dumbfounding sometimes because, and this is said with the most respect, but impressions are a lot of the vanity metric that are used. So how many eyeballs did I get on my content? And yes, it could be 100 million or close to hundreds of millions, but how many of them actually bothered to take 1 second to actually look at it and engage with it? Instead, we're just scrolling past it mindlessly. Okay, and people are being sucked in by these algorithms. So our problem is that not only are companies wasting money, they're wasting people's time and attention, but they're also using surveillance-based data. And on top of all of that, it's not even a great ROI. Okay, so there's a huge industry problem here that needs to be addressed. And that's not us. Okay, so statistically, by 2027, the ad industry will be about $870 billion. 56% of all of those impressions we mentioned of that spend are never seen by customers because the ads are hidden away for fake fraud ads, for quick pass scroll ads, and sometimes these impressions are counted even though The customer, the target customer, has never seen it. And still to this day, I see ads for stuff that I bought or that I've clicked and I said, I'm not interested, not relevant. They pop up again and again and again. Every single time those brands are being charged. The third for me was the most outstanding, though, in a negative way, is that 0.66% is the average click-through per quarter of social media advertising. Okay, sometimes in some industries it's higher, but on average it's in single digits or in low teens is the conversion rate for a lot of advertising today. And that's just not acceptable. And Bruce, you'll know, coming from a telco industry where 99.49s is the standard, otherwise your call drops, you're in trouble. Yet we've got a whole sector that is happy with this mediocrity, of bad conversion, because they've felt comfortable with this balance. Okay, and that's a bad thing. The final one resonates with, the final two, resonate with our mission statement, is that most people in Americas, and the statistics are similar worldwide, do not trust these leaders. Okay, but like I said in the beginning, we've just turned a blind eye and they're still getting away with it because many people see it as too big a problem to cover. And on top of that ad spend, still 170 billion, that's a lot of money, is just pure ad fraud. Okay, so this is an industry that spends a lot of money, does tracking and surveillance against a lot of regulation, and still is not converting in a good ROI. So there's a problem, okay, that we believe we have to fix, and somebody has to fix.
So one of the things that,
yeah,
that I think we mentioned earlier is like people, we talked a little bit about people don't care about privacy. I think right now what you're kind of showing is that, well, it's not that people don't, maybe the angle isn't, people don't care about privacy, but rather that the way we are doing business on the advertisement side of things is incredibly inefficient due to just how we are collecting data and how we use data.
absolutely. And that's part of, what we're trying to get to at Profila, is a lot of the data that is actually captured. And this is what this slide is trying to show. The data and attention economy today is we've got so many layers of systems that all make money. Okay, the surveillance industry is massive. I mean, we can track individuals across devices now, even to your TV and back, because they've all got these ad identifiers on them. And they're trying to make the options easier for you to switch them off, but I promise you they're always on. So this industry is making a lot of money. But then we've got all these data brokers, historical ones, which are massive organizations that are storing all data that's ever been printed about you or stored about you. And a lot of them get into trouble, but they're still doing it today. Okay, and they're still fueling this negative behavior of hoard your big data because maybe there'll be one insight that I need. And thirdly, we're of the opinion that this over expenditure on CRM and CDP has gone too far. Every company invests literally millions and millions and millions of dollars into these platforms. And I've spoken to some of the very big ones that have spent 50, 60 million on this type of thing. They still don't know their customer that walks into their 4,000 retail stores. Okay, because of the problem of sharing data from the edge to the center and keeping it up to date, though, and relevant. Statistically, 70% of data is out of date after 3 to 4 to 5 months. Okay, so how they're continuously reinvesting to try and stimulate this data to become live and relevant again. And they're doing that through surveillance. They're doing that through buying data from data brokers. And some of them are trying to act well, and act honestly by asking their customers to come to their site and do surveys and get first-party data, but it's not enough. It's not effective enough. Okay, and that's a big problem. On top of that, there's a lot of advertising channels and a lot of platforms that are monetizing ad go-to-market with the obsession that brands need to be everywhere we are. Okay, they think omni-channel means, okay, where is Bruce? I want to find out everywhere he is. And if they could, they'd put an ad on the side of the road every day outside your house if it was cost-effective enough, because they want to shove their brand in front of you. Consumers don't like that anymore. Okay, we like choice, and we want to be able to choose who we deal with and why. All of that, though, in the age-old saying of if it's free, you are the product, is getting old, but it's still true. All of that happens, and you as an individual don't get paid. So at the moment, we're taking a similar approach to one of the world's leading economies, and we believe that it's time for brands to clean up Okay, there's a lot of cost and risk you can take out of your business if you don't support the surveillance industry, if you don't hoard data. And there's companies that are still getting fined because they've got too much old data that they don't have consent for. They get a hack and they're getting massive fines. So holding the wrong data, it's inaccurate anyway, and then you're open to a risk. And also, as I mentioned, these CRMs are becoming heavy. Even the CRM companies are saying the SaaS model is dying. Okay, and they're trying to replace it with intelligent AIs. But there again is a trap, because if they feed the AIs on the existing data, they're trying to steal that asset away from you. So we believe you can get rid of all of those and have a platform built specifically for the customer. Okay, and using the Web3 technologies to be able to put a ring fence around the data so that even the platform profiler cannot abuse that data. And that's the beautiful thing about Web3 and the privacy preserving tech that we'll put in place.
So one thing that I want to add into this picture, and this goes back to the data brokers. One of the challenges that I think that the platforms have is gaining access to real-time data. And when you have all of these different multiple brokers, what you end up is stale, old data, which is just really not useful at all. So I think that's one of the challenges that I think a lot of the teams face.
Absolutely, Bruce. And a lot of the companies we've spoken to too, is the customer's context and their life choices changes weekly, monthly, and they've never got enough time to respond to lag indicator data. And surveillance by its nature is a lag indicator. And Profiler will become a lead indicator platform. Because if I'm deciding, okay, now I'm in the market for a car, but I might only purchase in 6 months, let your customer tell you at broadcast scale. And the technology is there. In the past, brands used to think that my customer is dumb. Okay, and this is an old adage, is that no, you have to handhold your customer through every step. But I also mentioned in this morning's call, we're experiencing probably the biggest shift in wealth in like the last 50 to 100 years, from the boomers to the Gen Zs and the millennials. And all of them are digital natives. Okay, they know how to manage data. They know how to surf the internet. And more importantly, they know what they want. Okay, because they've had enough time to explore the whole internet, because they're on their phones all day. So it's time for brands to start understanding that your customer is empowered, they're intelligent, they know how to use technology. It's only thing stopping them is they don't have a platform like Profiler to give those brands those snippets of information to say, hey, I'm in the market, but don't flood me. And I'm in the market and I want this service, but don't occupy my whole space, for the next months. And that will fundamentally change the industry, like it did in manufacturing. And this happened ages ago with manufacturing, where it became a just-in-time process. In the past, you used to have all the parts, all the stock, in the same factory, and it would get old and it'll take it to production line. Now the whole manufacturing ecosystem is linked to just in time to get the product off of the factory floor. That's how brands need to start viewing data, is what data do I need to run my engine as a business to sell you a travel package? I don't need Bruce's whole history of his family and his life. No, I don't think so. Okay, so our revolution is to make Profiler the category-leading personal media platform. We believe there will be others, and this will become a new quadrant in Gartner, where it will be platforms designed for people. For those who have been in the industry a long time, you could call it reverse CRM, but I think the CRM term needs to die. Okay, it's a time where customers can share content with companies to be able to deliver a service. We believe, though, we'll be able to 100x that bad statistic and get 100% engagement and click-through. Because if your customer has told you they're interested in the service and they've told you how much content and when they want to see it, they will engage. So our North Star as a company is to get 100% engagement, not to waste your brand dollars and not to waste your customers' time. And to be able to do this in a way that preserves privacy. Okay, the tools are there now. And that's been the research and development we've done over the years to ensure we put together an ecosystem that is different. So where does Profiler fit in? Our market positioning is very clear. Okay, for awareness, unfortunately, you have to go out into the danger zone, as we call it, which is I put up my hand as a brand and then say, I'm here, I exist, and this is the service I have. Then as soon as you got interest in the funnel, then you bring it to Profiler, which is a quieter, more cost-effective space for your customers to be able to self-profile and tell you what they actually want. Okay, because I've spoken to companies in the consumer goods for headset wear and even B2B business. They got thousands and thousands of leads that still need to be sent offshore to be cleaned up, to qualify, to crunch the data to see if a few of them convert. If your customer truly wants a relationship with you, they will tell you on Profiler. Okay, and we love the concept of being able to cultivate a customer lifetime relationship. Our number one metric on the platform is not daily active users or impressions. It is customer lifetime management. So how long can we keep your customer in a relationship with you on the platform? Because we can take them through those levels to advocacy and retention. And if the customer's data is stored in an environment that they trust, that they own and control, not Profiler, then why would they move? Okay. And again, here is something we didn't mention earlier, is that every company that I've ever done business with has got a copy of my data. That is so much wastage of infrastructure, of power, of compute, and also of privacy risk, of breach risk. It's a waste of money. So if companies want to optimize, and the customer is empowered by many companies to say there's one source of truth, which is me, then companies can now at scale come to a single individual and ask the questions and get the data they need. So any questions on this one, Bruce, or is it clear?
Oh yeah, just two things. One, that both are really comments. So I mentioned that I worked for a life insurance company in the past, but this also applies to the telecommunication business. There is a tremendous amount of risk that a organization takes on by holding on to customer data, and from a compliance perspective, just the ability for a organization to now be able to have the user subscribe to you rather than the other way around. The reverse CRM takes a tremendous amount of operational cost away, from retention to making sure that you're actually shredding the information properly and so on and so forth. So I think that's a really interesting value proposition that that you're actually bringing to the enterprise actually. So that's a really interesting concept, I think.
Awesome.
And the other is that reverse CRM that you mentioned.
Yeah,
It's now not about. And I think you mentioned this. It's not about the users now subscribing to the company. It's the company that's subscribing to you.
correct.
That's, to me, that's a very uh, a paradigm shift in how users do business with enterprises.
Absolutely. I'm glad you pointed out those two, because in my brand pitch that we'll do during the week, people think too much of ad optimization or just the right data to target content. But when you look at the whole ecosystem, the platform can be used for sharing any type of data with any entity. So it could be with your telco to say, give me my bill. That could be passed through Profiler. We've done a lot of work in the healthcare industry in clinical trials where
Mm.
sensitive data is passed between two individuals because it's not search, not social, it's a private channel. And it's built that way so that that data communication is secure and private. And that does change the game as far as, well, life cycle management, because I might get an ad to buy a healthcare product, but afterwards I need support, I need coaching, and I need to understand how to benefit from the product that has been given to me.
Mm.
But the points you mentioned there are exactly what we're trying to achieve, is to help companies to realize they don't need to do this all over themselves. Okay. The days of 1,000 instances, and I'm sorry to say it, of Salesforce or CRM in the top 500 companies needs to end. There's a lot of money that those companies could save if they trust their customer. And just one point in that, now that we're coming to the roadmap and to preserving data integrity too, is people then say to me, well, what happens if the customer takes my data out of my access? That doesn't mean I've lost the data record. And it's no, because you'll always have access to the fact that a customer connected with you, and you'll have links of the metadata. So you'll always know that this was a good customer. They bought a car, maybe they interacted with this much content, but all their personal data will be gone. Okay, so that they're obfuscated. Their identity is gone, but the brand will still have access to enough data to know their metrics as to, is that an active customer? Is it live? What was their history? Okay, so you don't have to have all the personal data wrapped around that to still have a record, which is useful for a lot of systems.
So what you're really talking about isn't just brand and advertisements. You're really talking about the full life cycle of a particular customer.
Correct. Correct.
That makes sense.
Because we're attacking, and this is where we do it in pitches, we're attacking this market first because this is where the challenge of privacy started and also where the biggest data abuse is. And to be able to reward people, and you hit it on the nail on the head, is our Web3 business model, as you can see in point 2, is that brands subscribe to people and they lease data for a duration and period. So we use the property type of law principle. The data is never sold. And in 90% of cases, we don't want it to leave the platform either. If a brand insists and they need it to process in other platforms, it'll be a different type of contract request to the individual, and they'll be under different terms, which are stricter. And there we manage their access and use of it, that when the term ends, we send them legal documentation saying you have to delete and you have to now confirm deletion so that there is recourse in case they don't do it physically. And that is all automated. So the user just has to say, okay, I'll give you for medical research the data for 1 year, but after that, you don't have access anymore. But I want value back too. And that's why we built the advertising type channel, because I want feedback from the medical research company to say, here's the results, this is what our findings are, and how does that benefit you as an individual needs to come out. Okay, so having a look at how we build this, and this has been a lot of the R&D, and it looks high level here, which it is. But in the first phase, digital identity is something important to us, and we've experimented with quite a few frameworks from Cardano, and we've implemented Atala Prism, and we're updating to Hyperledger Identis. But for us, what's more important is to attach multiple verified credentials from other systems to that one ID. Okay, so we want to take a federated approach, and whoever leads in different markets, because each country might adopt different standards, each industry might adopt different standards. We want it easy enough so that I'm in Switzerland, I sign in with a Swiss pass. That means I've done some verifications already with some legal entity in Switzerland. For some companies, that may be all they need to prove life. So our strategy around digital identity is going to be much more a federated approach, which I think is pretty cool. But the second area, and this is where Bruce, you guys at Partisia start coming into play with us, is on how do I get a consumer or a customer or a patient to capture data, but then to store it and share it responsibly. So point 2 and 3 is where some of the compute comes in. But the one that you actually told me about originally was your private surveying, because we do a lot of self-assessment surveys on the platform, and all of that is very sensitive personal data sometimes. So just give us a quick overview of how the Partisia private surveys works.
So ultimately, in the end, MPC, I think, is a way. We talked about it earlier. It's really about, how do we enable people to collaborate together without exposing their personal information. And so for people that are not familiar with multi-party computation or MPC, it's that ability. It's the ability for people to be able to share the use of their data and not share the data itself. I think that's a really an accurate way of talking about it. Share the use of the data, but not the data itself. And so from a private survey perspective, what you're really doing is you're putting in information. Maybe it's about your medical history. Certainly not something that you would want to input into a website where you really don't know who's going to have ownership of the data. But the people who are performing the computation and want to know the results of the survey need accurate data. So how do you do that? How do you preserve those two balances? And again, it's the ability for the user themselves to be able to share the use of their personal information without exposing the actual information itself. And so let's say, as an example, we have about 1,000 users and we're surveying, people who are able to donate blood. So something simple as that. When you donate blood, it's not just about talking about your blood type. It's about your blood type, but also what you ate, perhaps, but also your medical history, certain conditions that you've had in the past. You may not be eligible for donating blood. So how can I ensure that the presentation that I make or the survey that I'm doing, the information that I'm putting in is not exposed to anybody, especially the people that are doing the actual computation of the survey, but ensure that the survey team is able to compute an accurate result. And so technically the way it works is that you're computing on data that's already encrypted. So you're basically encrypting the data before you allow for the use of it, and the other people then are able to compute against that data has already been encrypted. I hope that was clear.
That's cool. Thank you, Bruce.
Also,
And so in this phase two of the strategy, we're looking at technologies from Midnight, which focus more on the zero knowledge proofs, which has a use case linked more to our digital ID side and the Lace wallet and so on. We're eager to see how that evolves, because that movement of one fact to one query and saying yes or no status is important for a lot of interactions. But when it comes to many queries or many query types to many data sets, then we need multi-party computation too. And that serves Profila's use case better. Because as you can see, and let's just finish off box 2, because in there we've got a distributed data architecture. Tomorrow night, we're speaking to Iagon. We've done research on other platforms like Filecoin and IPFS in the past, where we'll give people the ability to store their Profila on decentralized infrastructure so that it's not in a cloud-hosted environment if they so wish, okay? Because we'll build a trusted environment, the data will be encrypted, and we'll put all the relevant technologies in place. But some people just want that level of privacy to know that, hey, I've got full control of my Profila. So we will do that. Something exciting too is last year already, I think year before, a new EU Act came in about connected devices, which means that your energy meter, your Fitbit device, even ECG monitors, taking your heart rates, all of that data is yours now, okay? And you would need to permission those companies to say, yes, you can even process that data in your own platforms. In the future, we see that happening in Profila too, where the data could still be stored at the hospital or at the energy company, but you will be the one to say, yes, you can look at it to give me a service. Maybe I need someone to help me optimize, my fitness based on a lot of my medical feed. So that's where Profila will perfect our architecture and our systems to be able to give you consent and permission and control over data sets, whether they're with Profila or anywhere else, okay? And there's obviously a lot involved in how we get that right. But step 3 is what we've implemented as far as a process. And our Web3, our main smart contract developed on Aiken, is going to be implemented post the token sale, is a data subscription smart contract. And what that does is a brand needs your data, as Bruce has said. So they're querying many customers to see what is my target persona. So they put in a whole lot of requirements into that query, and then they have to run off to millions of customer data sets and find out who is my perfect match. Now, traditionally, they're doing that in a centralized environment in one of these CDPs where all the data is exposed, okay, and they can run a query and they can get a result, but nothing is private about that. Yes, they've tried their best to keep that infrastructure secure and safe, but it does not take it to the next level where even they as an organization cannot be corrupted to have that data hacked, have that data be abused by someone in staff internally. Using MPC, the data will be encrypted and the query itself will not expose any data. Okay, so there's zero data leakage. The brand has enough to be able to say, I found out of the 100,000 people, I found 56,000 that meet my profile. Let me create content, let me create a campaign, and I can send it to them as well without exposing any data at all. Okay, and that's the beauty of what we're building, is this whole process can be private. Okay, and then point 4 and 5, and I'll jump on because we're running into time and I want to leave some Q&A. Is how do we expand this experience outside of a walled garden? Okay, because Profila is one platform, but we did research into a zero knowledge advertising protocol, which we have the designs for, and that will help us to extend this capability of your Profila into third-party apps and into different websites itself. Okay, so we have a way for us to develop an SDK, which the designs are there to be able to allow your profiler insights, not the data, to flow through to the profile of another app you're using. So that they will know, okay, this is the country I'm in, and this is my birth date, and we can even show them a verified credential. That's all they need, okay? So a lot of companies can access your profiler in that way in the future and on websites itself. So it makes it extensible across the whole internet. And that was always our vision, is not to solve for just one platform, is to solve the privacy problem on the internet. And this is a viable replacement for the cookie challenge that we have at the moment. Okay, so obviously it takes time for a new protocol to be adopted, and that's our vision and mission for the next 10 years. But the privacy era, has focused a lot on blockchain, but we understand now that we need a private and a public balance between the two. The public blockchain is there for public consumption, okay, but it also proves that certain things have happened on a public record, and it's the most decentralized, so you get better immutability of the record. And that's what we use the public record for, is that if a decision has been made, an agreement's been made, just the metadata and the construct of that will be stored on the public chain, so that nobody can deny that I gave access or I took away access to my data or my attention. The private side, and this is where the likes of Midnight and other privacy chains like Partizia even got private functionality, comes along, where we can take data, we can run encrypted compute on it, and we can deliver a result back to the companies that we deal with. So on that roadmap, Bruce, any comments?
So every time I speak with you, Sean, I always learn something a little bit different. And so this time around, I'm learning about how your platform, the Profila platform, can be used for far more than just brand subscribing to a person. I mean, we're talking about just overall revolutionizing how just data is just overall used. So always learning something new. This roadmap is just fantastic. It's amazing.
Thank you. And I think that is the core of it, because what is advertising, what is healthcare data and documentation without a good source of data? And I love the new AI little meme that's going around where all this AI stuff is so cool on the right-hand side, but there's a little poop on the left. So it's poop data in means poop results out of AI, okay? And that's never going to change in any system in the history of mankind. Is it bad data in, bad process out, bad results out? Okay, and that's what we're aiming to perfect, is quality data in from the source, but that's protected so that the individual can take back some sort of control. And that's where the power to the person really comes, right? Is if over time, and this is what I love about our approach too, is we've got this dilemma now where anything you put into these AIs becomes the property of the AI. Whereas if you hold back your data from the internet, what does scarcity do? It drives up price, it drives up demand. So if people want to know, what is Sean or Bruce going to do with their money, or what is Sean and Bruce doing? And you never let that data out other than through a controlled encrypted mechanism, you have the power. Okay, that's where brands will, in the future, and companies will start paying higher premiums for data. Right now, the data is abundant, and that's why the price for it is low, okay, because it's everywhere. In the future, where it becomes more and more scarce, but much, much more accurate, then we'll get to our North Star, which is perfect data set matched with a perfect piece of content and 100% engagement with zero frustration. And I think that's a future that we have to have in a world that's going 1,000% digital and fast. So I'll jump over these because we've got a great event which just launched today, but our aspirations are big and bold, and that's what it has been from day one. And that's why we took our time in building something that is meaningful. 2 years ago, I took the decision to rebuild the whole platform because it didn't meet up to audit criteria. Okay, so we are launching this year. We're ready in Q1, Q2 for trials with enterprise, and our revenue objectives are significant. So we know that by being in the US, and our companies in Switzerland, Belgium, South Africa, and we're going to the US in the next quarter, is where we will attract the revenue for advertising. And 10 million is a small amount in advertising. Our target is in the next 4 years to get to a minimum of 100 million ARR in that industry, okay, so that we can have an impact. Because as soon as you have an impact and you start denting into the tens of millions of the incumbents' revenue, then the industry wakes up and says, okay, this is something we need to take attention to. And to do that, we've also launched the token not for any reason other than it has significant use in our platform. The ZEKE token is zero knowledge token. And what it does, it has a payment and a utility capability. And this has been vetted by 2 legal reviews in Switzerland and in Liechtenstein. And it truly is a utility function. Because we know building a profile, as we've just mentioned, is a new habit for people. Okay, so we want to incentivize them to build this accurate profile and to maintain the data. That's why 50 to 80% of any revenue that's made on the platform for data and ads goes through to you. Okay, because you're doing the work, you're looking at the content, you're building the profile. And in future, we see that even going up to 95, 98% as we as a platform gain efficiency. Okay, because we need 20% transaction fees to be able to build this mechanism and this engine behind it. But as time goes and we get more and more users, we want to reduce that amount so that all of that key effort is actually compensated. What that does, though, is the utility encourages you, and 53% of our tokens are set aside to build the ecosystem. So they're given to users who build a profile, who engage with brands' content, and who vote for brands to come to the platform. That creates the ecosystem. It creates the demand. Okay, and then once that accurate data is there, the brands will come because that's a seed. Yes, Bruce is telling me the truth. And then they can provide content. We don't charge for impressions on the platform, which is new in the industry, but we do rely on brands also saying to their customers, like we showed earlier, from interest, come to a new platform and let us see if you're really interested in our company. And that's the first test, right? If somebody's willing to build a relationship with you, you know they're a good customer already. So then it's up to you to cultivate that. And you can do it in the best way and build trust if you're on Profila. And I think people need to understand that even that 10 or 100 million are small amounts in the industry. Once we reach the hundreds of millions plus, and imagine $1 billion of revenue come through the platform, 50 to 80% of that means 800 million is being distributed through the token to people. Because cash that we get in, fiat currency, we purchase ZEKE tokens off of the exchanges and we pay out people in the ZEKE token. Okay, so that creates a huge amount of buy pressure onto a token which represents your data and attention. So we learned a lot from Brave and we thank them, but this is like a Brave 3.0, okay, where your data and attention can now scale and become a real asset that you actually control. And the research professors told us, that that's a passive zero-knowledge environment is the Brave browser. What Profila is an active zero-knowledge environment because you're fully in control of what you share and what you consume, okay, which you're not in other platforms. So we're very excited for where this is going to take us. And as you can see, we've got bold ambitions, which I believe we will accomplish. Any questions there?
No, if I could kind of just really, summarize, I think the consumers, the data are starving for accurate data, right? Now you're providing a platform where not only are you providing accurate data, but now you're also incentivizing and providing what should have been, real revenue or real rewards back to the users by providing that accurate data. It's exciting. I personally am looking forward to it, and
Cool.
then I'm going to sign up for sure.
Good, I'll hold you to account there.
Absolutely.
Okay, so the investment opportunity, and this is public knowledge, so we're sharing it. We've got a team already working in the US, and we're looking for our seed equity round to take the business into the advertising and data space in that market. We're already in the process of interviewing and hiring a hit team for a blitzscaling growth in 2026 and 2025, the second half, with those ambitions as stated. Okay, and that will grow. We've already been speaking over the last 2 years to Series A investors in the US. And they say if we hit any of these milestones of the ARR on this model, then the bigger checks will be ready for us, because then they know we can disrupt this industry. And on the ZEKE token side, we closed a successful seed, pre-seed, and private round of 1.3 million last week. And now the token sale is open for public on the MinSwap DEX for Cardano users specifically, and on the LCX SEX, which is a Liechtenstein-based exchange, which is fully regulated. And there you can purchase with different cryptos and also cash and fiat. So yeah, I would like to round it off by inviting people just to look a little bit deeper. And as Bruce says, and I've been talking to Bruce for 1 or 2 years, once you look deeper under the hood of why we're doing this, it's not just a quick project. It's not just a how can I trade and make a few, dollars on my token project. It is something that is being cultivated for 6-7 years, and we have a long roadmap ahead of us where we can actually disrupt an entire segment. Okay, and that's why we're also approaching investors that understand this bigger picture, that have invested into the CRMs, CDPs, and into the advertising ecosystem. Because once they see the shift coming, they love it. Okay, this is a 100x company in the making, and that's what we believe the token will represent in the future, is the full potential of your data and attention in the Web3 world. So Bruce, thank you so much for your time, and we've got a lot that we still want to do with Partisia, and I've been speaking to Adrienne and a lot of the team that are doing great work there to cultivate, what I think is one of the better privacy chains in the market. So keep doing what you guys are doing, because we want to build on your environment.
Yeah, thanks for that, Sean. And we're, first of all, super excited that we're working together. I think our visions and our philosophy align together really well. So super excited to work with you, and would love to have you on our channel as well to do the demo of your system as well. So looking forward to it.
Awesome, anytime. And yeah, I'm just looking forward to the clash of the titans here, because as I mentioned, from the solution architecture background, there's so many people that have built awesome technologies in this Web3 world since 2017. And we've seen this evolution, and we were very fortunate to get multiple grants from the Catalyst community, and we experimented over and over again, on what we need and what we want. So that's what makes us quite picky now as to the technologies that we're going to implement to deliver on our use case. And there will be cherry-picked from the best that there is. But I'm excited to see how Midnight and Partisia line up next to each other, because I think they're compatible. In some areas, they might overlap. But that's great, isn't it, for us as a DApp layer? Because if we've got competing technologies that do similar but not the same thing, we're spoiled for choice. So I'm glad you guys are competing on the tech side, and we're going to compete in saving privacy for every human on Earth. Yeah.
Sounds great.
Awesome. Bruce, thank you, and we'll speak to you soon. And for anyone who's watching, I'll be doing this the whole week, and tomorrow we've actually got somebody from the advertising industry joining me with a background in big agencies that will talking a little bit deeper into the ad tech dilemma and what brands and agencies are trying to do differently to grab attention. Okay, because advertising is about attention, but I think the world is moving towards mindfulness and mindful attention. But at the same time, we understand that these companies in the ecosystem need to make money. So we've never been maximalists around taking all privacy and too seriously and taking all data away. If the consumer wants to share, then let them share. That's why I'll end off with what our company mission is, which is human agency. What Profila delivers is human agency first, then privacy in exchange for value. Because if I love a brand and I want to share everything, so be it. That is my free choice as a human being. But with that, thank you, Bruce, and we'll speak to you soon on the flip side.
Sounds great. Thank you, everybody.
Cheers. Bye, everybody.